Hello and welcome to DD India. I'm Akshay Dongre and you are watching our special program Voice of the Global South, a show that brings to you stories, news, achievements and concerns of a rising aspirational world. So let us begin with today's episode. The truce in the conflict between Israel and Hamas that started after almost 50 days of hostilities could only last a week, as fighting once again erupted between the two. While Israel blamed Hamas for violating the terms of truce, Hamas blamed Israeli government of rejecting offers of extending it. And as the ceasefire ended, along with it ended the hopes of peace between the two warring factions once again. Now, with the renewed hostilities, the region is once again faced with the risks of escalation in fighting and the possibility of a spillover leading to a larger humanitarian crisis.
Rocket sirens blared in southern Israel and Palestinians ran for shelter as fighting resumed after the week-old truce between Israel and Hamas ended. There was no deal in sight to extend it. With the end of truce, the glimmers of hope that the conflict comes to an end also disappeared.
We are in the winter season, and as you can see, our situation is very tragic. We live in a tent with rainwater leaking on us, and the conditions are very harsh. We call on the heads of the state of the world to stand with us to find a permanent ceasefire and stop the war once and for all.
We had no other choice, you know. It's not the war that we choose. We have no other options. We still have 156 hostages in Gaza. Still have babies there. We don't know what the situation is going on there. I don't see any other choice. We don't want this war, but we have to.
Meanwhile, the governments of both sides have accused each other of violating the terms of the truce.
This morning, after a 7-day hostage release pause, having failed to provide a list of more hostages for release, the Hamas army of terror in the Gaza Strip violated the terms of the agreed framework and launched rocket fire at Israeli communities. At 5:43 a.m., Hamas fired the first rocket from Gaza, and that rocket fire has since intensified, with sirens blaring across southern Israel all morning.
Hamas also blamed the Israeli government of rejecting offers of extending the truce. The United Nations, meanwhile, has labeled the resumption of hostilities as catastrophic.
The resumption of hostilities in Gaza is catastrophic. We urge all parties and states with influence over them to redouble efforts immediately to ensure a ceasefire on humanitarian and human rights grounds.
Now, the risk of spillover of the conflict to a wider region has once again emerged.
We cannot talk about climate change in isolation from the humanitarian tragedies unfolding around us. The massive destruction of war makes the environmental threats of water scarcity and food insecurity even more severe.
The ongoing conflict and the possibility of escalation not only threatens to destabilize the region, but also the supply of basic necessities, which can turn grave, not just for the warring sides, but poses a threat of collateral damage as well.
And amid growing concerns of the devastating effects of climate change, the world leaders have gathered in Dubai to discuss ways to limit global warming for the 28th edition of Conference of Parties, also known as COP28. While various global leaders talked about ways to prevent the damage done to the environment by climate change, India once again echoed the concerns of the Global South, calling the developing and the underdeveloped world a victim, demanding finance and technology to reverse the damages done to the environment.
World's leaders converged in Dubai to combat global warming at 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference, more commonly referred to as COP28. This was the 28th edition of the COP which stands for Conference of the Parties, where the parties are the countries that are signatories of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Meanwhile, India once again echoed the concerns of the Global South and called for finance and technologies required for a tangible shift to greener alternatives.
ग्लोबल साउथ के तमाम देशों की क्लाइमेट चेंज में भूमिका बहुत कम रही है, पर क्लाइमेट चेंज के दुष्प्रभाव उन पर कहीं अधिक है। संसाधनों की कमी के बावजूद ये देश क्लाइमेट एक्शन के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। ग्लोबल साउथ की आकांक्षाओं को पूरा करने के लिए क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस और टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत ही जरूरी है।
On the first day of the conference, the host UAE's Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology announced that this year's conference will focus on climate finance challenges.
And we see, as you see, that the world has reached a crossroads. I pledge that I will run an inclusive and transparent process, one that encourages free and open discussion between all parties.
On day 2 of COP28 summit, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in his speech, said that burning of fossil fuel must stop and that a reduction in its use would not be enough to stop global warming.
We cannot save a burning planet via fire holes of fossil fuels. We must accelerate a just, equitable transition to renewables. The science is clear. The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning all fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees.
Day 2 of the COP28 Climate Summit began with host country UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan kickstarting the summit by announcing the establishment of $30 billion fund for global climate solutions, specifically designed to bridge the climate finance gap.
I am pleased to announce the establishment of a $30 billion climate fund around the world, which was designed to bridge the climate finance gap and to obtain it at a good cost. The fund also aims at increasing the gathering of the fund and investment of a $250 billion by 2030.
Meanwhile, Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak pledged $2 billion in funding at the United Nations Climate Summit, an attempt to bolster green credentials after watering down Britain's measures to reach net zero targets.
We're leading the world in new industries like offshore wind. We're protecting nature at home. So we've got a great story to tell. And I'll be announcing £1.6 billion of funding to help lots of other countries make that transition.
The COP28, which will go on till December 12th, has more than 70,000 delegates from around the globe in a bid to work out a worldwide solution to the pressing climate issues facing the planet and all mankind. However, the key to overcome the challenges will remain the implementation of the decided agenda by the world, especially by those who have historically been the most responsible for the present-day crisis.
And now some good news coming in from Global South. After 17 days of relentless coordinated efforts by multiple rescue agencies in India, 41 construction workers who were trapped in an under-construction tunnel were rescued in India's northern state of Uttarakhand. The operation, which was also being monitored by the Indian Prime Minister, overcame various challenges to bring out all the workers safely, which has become a textbook example on how to conduct such operations in future as well.
Wild celebrations erupted across India as 41 construction workers emerged dazed and smiling from a collapsed tunnel where they had been stuck for the last 17 days. A happy ending to an ordeal that had gripped India and the world, involving a massive rescue operation that overcame several setbacks.
Locals, relatives and government officials erupted with joy and set off firecrackers. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was constantly monitoring the rescue operations, said that its success in bringing out the trapped workers safely has been an emotional moment for the country. He also hailed the courage of the workers as an inspiration to others.
सबसे पहले तो मैं सभी आपके और आपके सभी साथियों को बधाई देता हूं। एक सुखरूप हम इतने संकट के बाद भी निकल पाए और मेरे लिए तो बहुत ही खुशी की बात है। मैं शब्दों में वर्णन भी नहीं कर सकता हूं, वरना कुछ भी बुरा हो जाता तो शायद मन को इतनी कैसे संभाल पाते कहना कठिन था। आपके परिवार की तपस्या भी काम में आई है, परमात्मा के आशीर्वाद भी काम में आए हैं और 140 करोड़ देशवासियों की दुआ भी काम में आई है और कुल मिलाकर के सब इस संकट से निकल करके बाहर आए हैं। मेरी तरफ से बहुत बहुत बधाई देना और आप लोग स्वस्थ रहें और इसी प्रकार एक टीम बना करके हिम्मत के साथ आगे हम बढ़ते रहें और आप भी देश के लिए एक प्रेरणा बनते रहें।
After 17 anxious days, the biggest sighs of relief have been heaved by the families of the trapped construction workers.
I was waiting since 12th November for him to be rescued. I used to keep taking updates on the situation. It is due to everyone's good prayers that he is rescued.
I am feeling very nice. It feels like Diwali has come again. I even got a call from my father that he is fine and that he has been rescued.
The critical rescue operation tasted success due to an early intervention by the local government and rescue agencies. They acted as first responders, and with their well-coordinated efforts, the endeavour has become a textbook example of how to deal with similar misfortunes if they occur.
We will take a short break here and be back with more Global South stories on the other side. Keep watching.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India and this is Voice of the Global South. Let's move on to our next story. And China's health authorities have reported an outbreak of respiratory illness in several parts of northern China, which has overwhelmed hospitals in many cities. The World Health Organization, monitoring the situation, has asked China for more data to analyze the health crisis and its implications for the rest of the world.
Hospitals in northern China are witnessing an increase in the number of patients suffering from respiratory illnesses. as the country grapples with a surge in a mixture of pathogens that are targeting mainly children.
I do feel a little worried now, so I came to the doctor to check up for myself and my child. I don't think it's a big deal because this always happens every year, but this year seems particularly severe and the recovery time is also longer.
The situation came into the spotlight when the World Health Organization asked China for more information, citing a report by the Program for Monitoring Emerging Diseases, ProMed, on clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children.
Since mid-October 2023, WHO has been monitoring data from Chinese surveillance systems that have been showing an increase in respiratory illness in children in northern China. WHO identified media and ProMed reports about the clusters of this undiagnosed pneumonia in children's hospitals in Beijing.
WHO said that China responded to its request and the data it provided suggested the cases were linked to the lifting of COVID curbs along with the circulation of known pathogens like Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a common bacterial infection that typically affects children which has circulated since May. Meanwhile, the illness, particularly among children, has reportedly swamped pediatric units in the city hospitals.
Children's immune systems are not well developed. Specific and non-specific immunity functions are not very matured, including our children's relatively weak cough reflex, insufficient function of respiratory motile cilia, and low levels of immunoglobulin of our children, which all may easily cause infection.
Evoking feelings of deja vu among people across the world, we recall what happened 3 years ago when a similar outbreak was reported in 2019. That virus from the city of Wuhan led to the COVID pandemic. Can this one take a life-threatening form?
A fresh outbreak of cholera in Zimbabwe has gripped the South African nation, forcing the authorities to take emergency measures to contain the health crisis, which, according to the civilians, has been triggered by erratic clean water supplies and unhygienic living conditions for many. The outbreak has also triggered a panic in Zimbabwe, where more than 4,000 people died from cholera in 2008.
Zimbabwe has declared a state of emergency in capital Harare over a cholera outbreak that has resulted in at least 155 deaths. Harare's high-density suburb of Doordarshan, which accounts for nearly half the reported cases, is the epicenter of the outbreak, with the capital city reporting at least 13 deaths.
I started feeling stomach aches, then passing a yellowish watery stool. Cholera has really affected a lot of people in Doordarshan. They say it is because of the dirty water we are drinking.
Residents of Doordarshan have complained about erratic supplies of clean water, uncollected garbage, and raw sewage flowing in the streets as main reasons of the spike in cholera cases in the city.
The water from the boreholes has also become contaminated. We cannot even mention the tap water. That's even worse. We are now confused about which water source is safe to drink from.
We started having this cholera problem 2 months ago here in Doordarshan. This community does not have clean water. That is how cholera has come to this area. Residents are also complaining of raw sewage, which they say is also contributing to this problem.
Government and health authorities are intensifying efforts to control the outbreak and mitigate its impact on the population. In response to the escalating crisis, the government has instructed the city to take immediate measures. City's municipal authorities have started distributing water treatment tablets to residents. Government has also started restricting public gatherings while monitoring burials in all areas affected by cholera.
We are going to work hard as health workers to fight this disease in the community. We are appealing for boreholes because the shortage of clean water is affecting resident ability to maintain good hygiene.
Cholera, known for its rapid transmission through contaminated food or water, poses a significant threat in Zimbabwean cities where supplies of drinking water and sanitation facilities are erratic and infrastructure has collapsed due to years of neglect.
Deadly torrential rains and floods triggered by extreme weather events due to global warming have affected more than 2 million people in several areas of Somalia, with over 100 killed and 750,000 or 750,000 displaced from their homes. Rescue agencies have warned that the extreme weather events are likely to continue for the next few days, which can worsen the ongoing humanitarian crisis in the east of Africa.
The number of people killed by floods in Somalia has now crossed 100. The country is being battered by relentless heavy rains that began in October.
These floods are double compared to the previous ones. You can't take a risk in this one. When it is raining, we sit outside under a tent until the rain slows down. We only come in the house when the rain slows down so that we can cook for the children.
Hawa Ali is one of more than 700,000 people displaced by the incessant rainfall and frequent flash floods in several parts of the East Africa. For days, people have to take extreme steps to safeguard themselves from the frequent flash floods and incessant rainfall.
We climbed trees. The whole night until morning we were beating jerry cans as a means to call for help. We put babies and the elderly in beds and on trees and slopes. These floods have been going on for 2 weeks. The floods took people who were found the following morning on trees. We beat drums to convey messages to the people that we needed rescued.
According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, there will be no respite to the people in several parts of East Africa, as the extreme weather conditions will continue. Displaced people are among the most vulnerable.
To be very honest, nobody really knows the concrete figures are going to be affected. That is now, but we have currently a confluence still of the Indian Ocean dipole of El Nino. We have a cyclone building up in the Indian Ocean. We have rains continuing in the highlands of Ethiopia. All of that means that this is not over and it's not yet at its peak. It's getting worse, and these people are going to suffer more.
First drought and then floods are being seen in East Africa as the region continues to get battered by El Nino and Indian Ocean dipole. At COP28, Somalian president called the crisis an example of the devastating effects of the climate change.
Somalia is a country on the front line of the devastating effects of the extreme climate events. It is a reality we live with. As I stand here before you, my country is facing a humanitarian crisis which we are desperately trying to respond to because of severe floods resulting from El Nino effect. These floods have so far affected more than 2.4 million people.
As the world leaders meet at COP28, it remains to be seen what plans the world has for preventing climate change, which is disproportionately impacting almost all of Global South.
Tanzania is on a mission to make its roads more green. It has launched its first private compressed natural gas filling and conversion station in capital Dar es Salaam. The government aims to increase the use of country's natural gas reserves by offering what it calls a cleaner and cheaper alternative energy to drivers. But some environmental groups have warned the technology is little better than traditional combustion engines. DD India's Daniel Kijo has more.
After decades of petrol and diesel, an increasing number of motorists in Tanzania are turning to compressed natural gas to power their vehicles. Joseph Silaya is an Uber driver who converted his car 2 years ago. He says natural gas can cut costs by 40 to 50% compared to traditional fuel.
Since I started using CNG, I use 1 kilogram of gas for every 45 to 50 kilometers of travel, which gives me more bang for my buck, resulting into more profits every month.
The government says filling stations like this one will increase consumption of a locally available energy source that has a lower carbon footprint than the use of petrol and diesel.
The government is pushing for the use of natural gas in automobiles, buses, and even industrial machines The launching of yet another CNG station is testament that the government aims to ensure the gas we have is effectively used locally first.
It costs about $1,000 to convert a car from traditional fuel to gas. It's a specialist process, but one that is gaining popularity despite the upfront costs. Tanzania's Petroleum Development Authority says there are about 2,000 cars that use compressed natural gas in Tanzania, and the number is rising each day. But the availability of filling stations could put the brakes on the country's attempts to transition to cleaner energy. 20 stations have been commissioned, but so far there are only 3 stations in the whole country. Despite the challenges, many of those who have converted are converts themselves.
Since I installed the CNG system, I have never seen my car give out smoke. CNG is clean and safe. When you see a car smoking, maybe it has other mechanical issues.
But environmental groups disagree. Compressed natural gas does emit less CO2 than petrol vehicles, but it is a fossil fuel that has been found to emit high levels of toxic pollutants. A 2023 report in South Africa's Green Economy Journal claimed that CNG-powered vehicles are just as bad for the environment as their petrol-diesel counterparts, and argues electric vehicles are a better option. Despite the environmental concerns, an increasing number of drivers see compressed natural gas systems as a way to cut costs and preserve their engines. The government's aim is to try and make better use of the country's extensive gas reserves by making CNG available to more drivers across Tanzania. Daniel Kijo in Dar es Salaam, reporting for DD India.
This is all we have for you in this edition of Voice of the Global South. Let us know your thoughts on the show. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching a special program. News and updates continue on DD India. Thank you.